I will ask you the most easiest, obvious opening question you've probably ever been asked in an interview with me before. What gave you the inspiration to do this book, other than being a Star Wars fan?
Wow, it's quite a tricky question, really. I think it's just one of those things that it was more of a necessity for me to do it rather than feeling inspired to do it. It's one of those things where, Star Wars has always been part of my life, and it was just a natural progression into doing it. I guess when I started experimenting with Kirigami, I was enjoying making buildings, and obviously that's what the technique is traditionally used for. But then I sort of had the idea like, well, it's actually really cool to start making movie scenes. And then, of course, like Star Wars is consistently at the forefront of, the things that I'm into. And I thought, well, why not?
So let's step back even further then. When was your first interaction with Kirigami? Because everybody knows origami. And I'm assuming that Kirigami, it's like being a karate fan and a judo fan. The karate guys go, nobody talks about karate, only people ever talk about judo. Is it kind of the same with Kirigami? It's sort of like a cousin of, but not as well known.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the kiri part basically means cutting. So with origami, you're just folding to make a model. But with Kirigami, you're cutting and scoring and folding. So so that's why it's also called paper engineering, because everything's levered and propped up and like really cool that you can basically make quite detailed shapes and models from just a single sheet of paper. So that's the kind of nice thing about it, is it's just one piece of paper, and you can still see that when you look at the completed model. Otherwise, it's not quite the same as just creating templates and cutting and gluing parts, because with Kirigami, there is nothing glued to it. It's just that single sheet of paper. So it's nice that you can create something so cool out of just the ubiquity of a piece of paper. That's what I say.
Can you remember the first Kirigami piece you ever did? And when was it?
Well, it's not that long ago, really. So basically my grown-up job is I'm a digital designer. I work in digital media. And at the time I was maybe 7 years into my career, and started kind of getting a bit sort of itchy, 7-year itch, I guess, really.
Yeah.
I wanted to start making stuff again. And I mean, for me as a kid when I was growing up, my currency was egg cartons and toilet roll tubes and cereal boxes. Yeah. As soon as my mom came home from doing the grocery shopping, I was decanting cornflakes into Tupperware boxes so I could have that box, and I'd be making things like, Snake Mountain for Skeletor or whatever action figure I was into at that time. And even now, when I'm putting a toilet roll tube in the bin in the recycling, I'm thinking, God, I could make a lightsaber out of that. This is such a waste. But so yeah, I essentially started to want to experiment and explore craft again after working in digital media for such a long time. And this sort of coincided with a trip that I'd had over to Los Angeles. I'm a really big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright, the American architect.
Yeah.
And even when people don't know the name, that they know the Guggenheim or places like Falling Water. They're really prominent historical architectural pieces. So I'd been to one of his houses called the Ennis House, and it had been out of bounds to the public for nearly 20 years. Essentially, I pretended to have $14 million in the bank so that I could come and buy it, because it was on sale with Christie's at the time, and they fell for it. So I went round and had a look around it, and I remember it was kind of a bit of a spiritual moment for me, but at the same time I was really panicking that I might get rumbled. And so as I was walking around, having this amazing experience, at the same time I was asking questions like, so what's the plumbing like? And what side of the windows in all this, but and it was that. So when I came home from that trip, I wanted to commemorate the experience by making something with my hands, and during the research of what sort of technique I was going to use, I happened across Kirigami.
And you just kind of came across Kirigami? I mean, was it something you were familiar with before? Because I'd certainly not heard of it until your work had started to come to prominence. I think if I remember, Matt Martin a couple of years ago put a piece on StarWars.com.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was my first interaction with it, and I'm pushing 50, so I feel like I should have heard about this a long time before. So how did it come to you?
I think I used a thing called the internet. And it was basically paper models. That was it. I was googling paper models, and you know when you get into a loop in Google or whatever you're researching, you click on one thing, and then 10 clicks later you're somewhere completely weird. But it so happened that it was Kirigami that I ended up falling on. But I mean, so what happened then was I'd made this model of the Ennis house, and I was sharing it amongst friends, and they were saying, "Oh, this is really cool. You should do some more." And I kind of decided then, oh, well, I'm going to start making houses that I really love. And I'm actually a really big horror movie fan.
Right.
So the next one that I made after that, although it's not quite horror, the next one I made after that was the Addams Family mansion. I'm a big Addams Family fan.
Nice. And
the Ennis house, this Frank Lloyd Wright house that I've been to, it's most famous for being used as the exterior to Deckard's apartment in Blade Runner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was also used on a Vincent Price film called House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
So the exterior of the house was used in that. So I'd made the Addams Family mansion, which is sort of spooky haunted house, and I'd made the House on Haunted Hill, and I made the Exorcist house, then House from Amityville, and eventually I kind of got this collection going together of haunted houses from film and TV, which I ended up calling Horigami, and that became an exhibition, and it was just one of those zeitgeist moments, I guess. The timing was right. It was near to Halloween. Newspapers and websites were looking for some interesting stuff to post, and it just this kind of snowball effect of media interest in it, and that ended up leading to a publishing deal. And so yeah, it's kind of a very serendipitous, experience, really.
Yeah. So when you sat down for the very first time with the card or the paper or whatever your specific media was then, because I'm assuming it's matured over time. I don't know.
I use fancier paper now, yes.
Okay, fancier paper. Fancier paper is good.
Yeah.
How does it work to visualise? Because I look at the only thing I could equate to it was when you see a street artist when they paint that false perspective stuff. You've got to be able to see in sort of 3 or maybe 4 dimensions. I don't know. How does it work to work out what the final piece is going to be when you do that final fold and pop and there it is?
Well, I make a lot of prototypes. It's actually really simple. It's basically very straightforward geometric cuboid shapes.
Yeah.
And then you start building on, and that's why it suits Star Wars really well, because the ethos they have with the concept designers is that you should be able to identify a Star Wars ship from just this very simple line drawing.
Yes.
And actually, when you look at Star Wars ships, there's an X-wing or a Star Destroyer is just that triangle shape.
Yeah.
So you start with that basic triangle shape in Kirigami, and you then just start adding those sort of little details to it, and it's an evolution, really. But I'm telling you, every single time I sit down to do a new one, I've been doing this for 5 years now,
yeah, and
professionally, and doing stuff for commercials and books and so on. Every time I sit down to do a new one, I sit there and I go, oh, how do I do this again? I really have to kind of concentrate and get my head into it before I can start doing it. But yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing it. It is a challenge to make something that you instantly recognise just using that single sheet of paper.
Yeah. So is it possible, having not, again, been new to Kirigami and having not seen a huge amount other than the work that you've done, is it possible for a Kirigami artist to have his own or her own style?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like working with very sort of hard edges and geometric shapes and so on, but I've seen people who do work that's very much more organic in the shapes and so on. So I think there's lots of room for other Kirigami artists. Just don't go near Star Wars. That's my area.
Absolutely. Well, on that subject, so obviously you got your name out there, you got your work out there. The project has come to you. How did that project come to you? Because it's not everyone that can just rock up and do a Star Wars book of whatever kind it is. How did the project come to be?
A lot of badgering Lucasfilm. Yeah, it was. It's one of those sort of. I was just creeping towards it very slowly. I'd started to make a bit of a profile for myself online. I started to get a little bit of a following, and the publishing deal obviously helped with my first 2 books. And I managed to get an email address of somebody who worked at Lucasfilm that might have been able to put me in contact with Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah. And it was one of those things I thought, I looked on the site, it said never, you should never cold call us or anything. I thought, oh, well, I'll put together a little pitch document and I'll send it. And then, it must have been a week later, I got a phone call from the global marketing director of Lucasfilm saying, hi, we got your email. We're really interested. What would you like to do something with us? So, and that was incredible. But these big companies, they move quite slowly. So at one point I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make an unofficial Star Wars Kirigami exhibition. And I did it in a way that I knew that I wasn't doing anything, that would land me on the wrong side of them or anything. And during that process, the press started to, pick up again, and there was a lot more interest in it. And I got invited down to the Star Wars Episode 7 set. So I was being toured around that, and I got basically bumped into J.J. Abrams. And when he asked me, oh, who are you and what are you doing here and all this? And I was like, well, I'm just getting toured around, but I'm a designer, but I make paper architecture and paper art. And he says to me, oh, wow, I love paper art. That's one of my favorite mediums. What sort of stuff do you do? And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I was like, well, I make Star Wars stuff at the moment. And he said, oh, you've got to show me. So funny enough, I happened to have my iPad with me at the time. I had lots of pictures of my work on it, such a coincidence. And I showed him the work, and at this point, like I'm standing on Star Killer Base set. I've just watched Harrison Ford, Daisy Ridley, and John Boyega film pickups from across the corridor. I've just seen the Stormtroopers for the first time before they'd been put out in the media or anything. And J.J. Abrams going through my portfolio going, this is brilliant. You've got to meet Kathleen Kennedy. She's over there. And he grabs me by the hand and frog marches me through Star Killer Base over to Kathleen Kennedy, who's sitting in a director's chair, and he's like, Kathleen, stop what you're doing. You've got to meet this guy. He does this brilliant paper art. And so I got talking to her, and she says, oh, I remember you. I remember seeing this in the office at some point. And she says, do you have a business card on you? And I swear, like, I never have business cards on me. And it was the one time I had this really dog-eared, filthy business card stuffed into the back of my wallet, the only time ever. And I was like, oh, I handed this card over to her thinking, this is terrible. This is, you're a paper artist and you're handing over this rubbish business card. But anyway, that business card sort of worked its way through the chain, and I got a call from a business development guy at Disney. And then, we started talking again, and then, it came to happen. And I met with a guy called Mike Siglain, who's the creative director of Lucasfilm Publishing. Yeah. And I didn't even know that it was going to go ahead or anything. They were just like, oh, he's in town over from LA, or over from San Francisco. You should come and meet him. So I went in just really not knowing what to expect. And he immediately started talking like, well, I really loved Origami, your first book. I read it from cover to cover. We should do the exact same thing for Star Wars. I think we should probably do maybe ships this time. And I'm like, I was like, oh my God, we didn't even discuss this. Okay, yes, it's okay. So it was a really wonderful experience, I guess.
No kidding. I mean, just to be on the set is a cool experience as a fan, anyway. Yes. But you mentioned serendipity earlier. That's definitely a theme, isn't it? There's lots of nice mergings of moments coming together for you.
Yeah, exactly. And underneath all of that is just basically working your backside off for a long time and emailing people and talking to people, and most of the time nothing comes of anything. But if you keep at it, something things obviously do come together. But that experience of being on the episode 7 set was life changing. That was one of the most incredible moments ever. And this was before the first teaser had come out, or no, before the second teaser had come out. And I was being walked through the creature workshop, and this is the first time you've seen, oh my God, Admiral Akbar is going to be in it, and Nine Num is going to be in it, and then I spotted in the corner Darth Vader's melted helmet. Yeah. And this is again, this is before it was featured on the teaser, and I was like, oh my God. And of course I'd signed NDAs and everything, and I actually quite enjoy the process of keeping it secret, because I had to keep it secret for some of the stuff that's in this book from Last Jedi. But yeah, seeing that Vader helmet was just the most amazing thing ever. And I bought one of those prop shop replicas.
Yeah.
Of the helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Which, yeah, of course they went bust almost immediately, so there's not that many around. And it's a private place in my office.
So when you had the project, you knew you'd got it and you'd nailed it, and it was decided to do vehicles and ships.
Yeah.
How did you choose? You got 15 ships ranging in difficulty from easy up to difficult, which I think is a masterstroke because it gives me a chance of making something.
Yeah.
How did you pick those ships? Because it is across the whole range of the saga.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, not everything that you make in Kirigami translates that well to paper. There are certain ships that I tried that just didn't really work out that well. But of course there's some of the more iconic ships such as the Millennium Falcon and X-Wings and TIE Fighters and so on that you just have to have in there.
Yeah.
And actually with regards to choosing some of the difficulty levels, I wanted to make sure that some of the most iconic ships were at the beginner level, because you pick, you're a Star Wars fan, you pick up a book and you naturally one of the projects you're going to gravitate towards quicker it will be the Millennium Falcon or an X-Wing or so on.
Yeah.
And there's a few that I did that didn't make it into the book, but that was just about numbers and I made one for the First Order Transporter that didn't end up in the book. But I don't know, Star Wars has a habit of releasing expanded versions of things, so
this
maybe.
Is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Now, obviously, you've got these vehicles, and as you've mentioned before, and some of your previous work, there's landscapes, there's locations you can do, there's characters presumably you can do. So the scope for you, because this book's going to sell millions. I'm telling you now, millions. So, and there will be numerous sequels to it. So your scope, apart from obviously other vehicles, of course, is that you've got the scope to do locations, you've got the scope to do whatever you really want to do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would love to do another one. And we've talked, obviously when we first met, we have talked about doing other ones that, it's in the pipeline. It depends on how well the book is received. Kirigami is as you said, like a technique that not many people know. So for me, I guess there's a part of my job now in promoting the book is to educate people a little bit about what Kirigami is and also, the benefit that for me, like the reason that I went back to making craft was because I was bored of just doing stuff on the computer. I wanted to use my hands again. I wanted to switch off my phone and close my laptop and just spend some time at the table making something. And, I know that mindfulness is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it does have its merits. It does sort of let you kind of just enjoy a moment instead of just mindlessly scrolling through Instagram or something.
Oh yeah, totally. It's nice to know that as an older fan, because I'm definitely having a crack at this. I promise you will be seeing really badly done Kirigami coming on the Jedi newsfeed, all photographed by me. But I'm going to give it a go. But there's people like me who want to have a crack at it. There's kids who are coming into it. It's that tactile engagement with fandom as much as, like you say, reading about it. You're actually getting your hands dirty, so to speak, and making something.
Yeah, and I would love to do. I'd love to do more of them. I just hope it sells enough copies that they want me to do some more. But I've got some ideas, and I've already started doing some sketching of potential other things. But it's one of those things we'll wait and see.
Well, fingers crossed. And I'm going to ask you one final question that's just dropped into my head before I wrap this up.
Yeah.
Kirigami, I'm assuming, is a Japanese paper art.
Yes.
Do you know if the book's getting a Japanese release?
It is. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, it is. Actually, it's come out. It's been taken up by quite a few territories, which is it's actually one of the things I'm most looking forward to, seeing the book in translated into Japanese. I think that's going to look really cool. But I've got like the French and German and Spanish copies on the way over to me, which that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's brilliant. Well, thank you for giving us your time tonight. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem.
And we will definitely keep in touch and speak again when the second book comes out and sells millions of copies.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.